Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, the Social Justice Alliance meeting. I am Kim Garnett. I am co-host along with Jonathan Rogoff, and Rose Colasino is our advisor. Our organizing sentence, I'll go over that with you, is we are a multiracial, ethnic, generational coalition pursuing a more diverse, engaged, inclusive electorate by educating voters and advocating policies that directly impact underserved communities through empowering, supporting, and elevating frontline groups to achieve economic, political, and social justice. We are on Facebook, so if you're not following us, please follow us on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter as well. And if you need to contact us, you can contact us at iasja@indivisible.il.com. IASJA has a monthly meeting structure. On week one, we work with underserved community partners such as Chicago 400 and the Indigenous People Coalition, and at Mount Foundation Network Action Alliance. Week two, we work with the Suppression Free Democracy, the Roadmap to 22, where we update each month to provide a big picture reminder as well as the concrete actions people can engage with. On week three, we go through our messaging discussion, where we work group to combat disinformation related to critical race theory in local school boards, and consider to be a campaign issue for us to pay very close attention to. That is week three. That is what we're focusing on today. And voter registration is our week four. So with that, I am very pleased to turn over this meeting to our guest speakers for today, Joyce Slavic and Jim McGrath of NWSOFA for our topic of discussion. Thank you.
Okay, I will start sharing my screen and let's get it up here. This is our third meeting on this subject. We had a meeting on September 18th where we reviewed a lot of the organizations that are purported to be grassroots groups, and we're going to go through a few more of those today. But so this is the agenda for today. We'll go through some of the takeaways from the September 18th meeting. The video of that meeting is posted on the NWSOFA YouTube channel. This is the link to it. We will talk about how we respond to conspiracy theories with the Indivisible Truth Brigade. We'll talk about some of these new groups, some updates, and some new information. And we'll have an open discussion, assuming we have time at the end of the meeting. One thing we will do at the end of the meeting is I will try to post this presentation in the chat. So if you're interested in some of the links that are in this chat or in this presentation, if you stay around to the end of the meeting, you'll be able to download this presentation. So some of the takeaways from the September meeting were the disruptions at the school board meetings are not grassroots inspired. Well-funded national organizations with the goal of taking over school boards are driving this. This includes the harassment and intimidation of common sense board members with an attempt, and they've been successful, to cause them to resign. The other thing that we're finding is the religious right is becoming more and more involved in this effort. So what are the issues? We went through this last time, but these really aren't the issues. Actually, it's none of these. These are the dog whistle Trojan horse issues to get the base involved in what these national organizations are attempting to do. So it's more about taking control of the school board, at which point they can take control of the school curriculum. So they're concerned about teaching critical race theory. If they take control of the school board, they can then control that. It's about getting candidates elected to the board who can then run for higher offices. So it's like a proving ground for some of these organizations. It's getting parents to remove kids from public schools to enroll them in private schools. And we know where that goes. Once they start going into private schools, they will be looking for vouchers that the taxpayers then have to fund. Uh, and the well-funded organizations that have been above, we reviewed many of these during the September 18th meeting. We'll talk about a few more today. So again, local grassroots groups that are harassing the school boards are actually not so local. The people that are going to school boards are getting their information from these well-funded national organizations. Joyce and I recognized that when we started attending school board meetings back in July, different school boards, and we saw the same things being said, the same signs, the same words being used. So we realized that wasn't a coincidence. So we started looking into this, and this is what we found. Local school boards across the country are becoming cauldrons of anger because of the issues that these groups are trying to bring to the front. In Pennsylvania, a Republican donor is planning on donating $500,000 into school board races. School board races are supposed to be nonpartisan. So this is a major change in how we elect our school boards. And this is one of the GOP comment from one of the GOP party in Iowa, that we're in a culture war. They feel that we're in a culture war because of the left wanting to do things like teach an unsanitized history. So it's a loose network of conservative groups with ties to major Republican donors and party-aligned think tanks engage in this culture war in schools across the country. This is, if you're paying attention, this is happening across the country, more so in some other locations than here in Illinois, but it is happening in Illinois. They're drawn by parents are drawn by the anger of the school policies on racial history, because the schools now want to teach a complete history. For example, I took American history when I was in high school. I heard nothing about the Tulsa race riots. I mean, that's an omission. That's a huge omission, and that's all that we're trying to do. A wealthy suburb in Milwaukee, there's a law firm there that's heavily financed by a conservative foundation that has fought climate change, and they supported President Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election. But they are now fighting this school board chiefly over the hiring of a diversity consultant. A national advocacy group called Parents Defending Action are now promoting what's happening in the school district to parents across the nation. So Candace, can you take us through this, what you guys are doing at Indivisible Truth Brigade?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, what we're doing at Truth Brigade is trying to spread the truth, because what's been discovered, and is, hopefully most of you know, is that if you see all this misinformation and just lies out there, the temptation is to respond to them. But when you comment on something that someone's posted that's misinformation or disinformation, you're actually helping spread it. So what we try to teach people is, don't comment on it. It may really make you angry and you may really want to respond, but when you put a comment on there, it's just spreading it to more people on Facebook and on Twitter. So what we try to do instead is we have a focus on putting the truth out there ourselves so that it spreads to other people, so that people are amplifying our truths. So what we do is, there's a National Truth Brigade, and there is Indivisible Illinois. We have a Truth Brigade Illinois, where we have a Facebook group and a membership. And what we try to do is work with everyone on various topics to create what we call truth sandwiches. And it's well known that people pay most attention to the first and last thing they heard. So what we do is we try to start with the true statement that people will all agree with. Then in the middle of the sandwich is a statement calling out the motives of those spreading disinformation. And then we end with the final true statement, reaffirming the truth in a way that gets people to a more proactive message. So for example, for masking in schools, a Truth Brigade message that we put out there and tagged Truth Brigade Illinois is, we all want what is best for our kids, but some parents and others are pushing an anti-mask agenda based on misinformation and misguided agendas. Do what is right for our kids, support masking, hashtag Truth Brigade Illinois. And then what we'll do is put a picture with that to draw people's attention. And then hopefully, sometimes we put substantive articles. So I've been posting things from Mayo Clinic about how masks won't hurt kids and the benefits of wearing masks in school, because you're not going to change the mind of the hardcore people, but there are a lot of people out there who are listening, who are just getting bad information. And so our concept is that we want to spread the truth and promote that, as opposed to just commenting on other people's lies. I will put in, we welcome people to join us. There's training programs, there's Slack channels. I will put in the chat the links to one of the things that National puts together is these campaign documents that have all sorts of graphics and messaging guidance and links to good information. And so what we want to do is encourage people to try to get the right information out there instead of just steaming at the bad information that's out there. Is that what you were looking for, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Candace. I appreciate that. And thanks for putting that link in the chat. That's great.
I'll do that now.
So school board harassment. If you haven't watched this interview that Lawrence O'Donnell did with Jennifer Jenkins is a school board member at the Brevard County School Board. You got to watch this interview. She has been harassed. She has a 5-year-old child. These people, 25 people, she says, gather outside her home, walk by her child's bedroom. But she has decided she is going to be strong. She's going to put up with this. She is not going to let them win. She is not going to resign. But it's like a 10-minute interview. Lawrence O'Donnell does a great job. It's happening all over. In St. Charles this year, 2 board members have resigned recently. Just one happened this week. And in Algonquin, the harassment of the school boards is also starting. And I'm sure one of the requests that I'm going to have at the end of this is, if you find that this is happening in your school district, send an email to Joyce or myself or both of us. We would like to start keeping track of this. Okay. So critical race theory, it's actually a proving ground for the GOP. The goal is to grow the ranks of the Republican politicians. They're concerned about being taught the systemic racism in schools, so they're harassing the school boards so that they won't do this. But it's the local races outside the spotlight of the main elections. For example, in school board elections, there's typically only 10 to 12% of the electorate that votes. So one thing that we can do, now the next school board election in Illinois is not till, I think, April of 2023. So one thing we can all do is work to get out the vote, get behind school board candidates, and work to get the people we want on the school board. While these elections are supposed to be nonpartisan, the Republican Party sees a rich opportunity to build a pipeline of local political candidates. So wealthy Republican affiliated groups are raising money to train candidates to run for office as the GOP seeks a second Tea Party movement. That was big for a couple of years. It has faded. It hasn't gone away. But so the right-wing campaign is to stifle teaching and discussion about racism in U.S. history and institutions. It's fear-mongering about the critical race theory. Critical race theory isn't being taught in high schools. It's not being taught in grade schools. But what they want to do is take over the school boards. This is a comment from one of the one of the GOPs, the left has spent many years and vast funding, which is not true, because these have been nonpartisan elections to stack local school boards. This is the Leadership Institute. That's a group that we talked about last month. American children suffer the effects of liberal domination every day. Now, this is another word you're going to see throughout this, is the word patriotic Americans. You have to be a patriot. Be with us. You're a patriot. So critical race theory is a legal framework to examine how racism is embedded in laws and institutions. It is a college level course. It is not a K through 12 course, but conservative activists have co-opted the term to describe discussions of race and gender they believe that are too progressive. So they have they're taking over this term. They're putting their own definition to it. And that's what we have to, as Candace just talked about, the truth sandwich, they have put their own definition to it. So if you get confronted with this, you have to be able to respond that it's with what it is. Okay, this is another GOP quote, or quote from a GOP operative. Republican campaign manager of her school board candidates. Now, pay attention. A Republican campaign manager for school board candidates. School board candidates are supposed to be nonpartisan. He's saying that helping kids of color to feel they belong has a negative effect on white Christian conservative kids. And you'll see some other slides about how the religious right is coming into this activity. Mary Beeman, who is the campaign manager, she made this comment at a school board meeting. The critical race theory, she admitted that it was poorly worded. In trying to mop up the mess, she said she'd been referring to students who may have a staunch Judeo-Christian values or simply are conservative thinkers. And they're now being bullied into submission by their teachers. Another word you're going to see in here is indoctrination. They're saying that because we want to teach history, the true history, that there is now indoctrination. Bill Bloss, Guilford School Board Chairman, made it clear he challenged this woman's comments by saying exactly what context would your comments be positive in? And they wouldn't be. Now, this is something that's happened in North Carolina. They were getting reports, again, perceived reports, alleged cases of teachers teaching the facts. So they started this group to do a survey. It's called the Fairness, Accountability in the Classroom for Teachers and Students, abbreviated FACTS. What they're doing is keeping track of all these alleged cases of indoctrination. If a parent thinks his or her student is being taught the true history, they can go to this group and say, well, my school board, this teacher in this school district is indoctrinating my kids. It just has to be perceived. So what they're trying to do is keep track of this so they get a better understanding of what the scope and breadth of this problem is, whether or not these are isolated cases or part of a more widespread issue. Now, that's concerning. The widespread issue means we want to teach the truth. Is that what they're concerned about? That's what this sounds like to me. Okay, the religious right is saying we're trying to whitewash things and restrict teaching about systemic racism. Under the guise of protecting children from the supposed threat of critical race theory, the campaign against teaching about racism has taken the form of incendiary right-wing media segments, attacks on teachers and school officials at both the state and federal legislation. In the hands of right-wing activists, pushed by Fox News personality Tucker Carlson, the former President Donald Trump, and other Republican officials, critical race theory as a term has lost all meaning. As I said before, they are putting their own meaning to it. So again, what Candace said about the truth sandwich, if you have to respond to this on a one-on-one situation, think about think about that response. It's becoming an all-purpose label with which to smear teachers and libel politicians as anti-white, Marxist, or America haters. In other words, you're not a patriot if you want to teach the true history. There's a group called the Family Research Council that's run by a person named Tony Perkins. He's raising money to promote right-wing takeovers of local school boards. Again, you'll see this consistent through all of these organizations, which he claims is necessary to protect the hearts and minds of the next generation from the left-wing agenda. Now, the left wing never had an agenda at school boards. We just want the truth. Perkins, ignoring the national right-wing groups that already are heavily involved in the right-wing school board takeover, portrayed his campaign as a grassroots uprising. Well, he's already a national organization, so he's already trying to mislead people by claiming it's a grassroots organization. Perkins said, focusing our national expertise on key local elections by providing at no charge much needed resources to help replace radical school board members with Christian and conservative parents and other qualified candidates. Once again, the religious right is stepping into this foray. You probably, hopefully all remember Stephen Miller. He was very active with President Trump, former Trump aide. He is now with the group called America First Legal, and he's putting his own definition to critical race theory. So America First Legal, AFL, is committed to defeating the illegal equity agenda and the poisonous ideology deriving it. Critical race theory in that mission, AFL is standing up for parents who are trying to save their children from racist indoctrination. Again, that word indoctrination appears. Critical race theory is applied to education, holds that in the United States, the education system is inherently racist and exists to create and maintain social, economic, political inequities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. So again, you can see how they're putting their own spin on what they want people to believe using terms that are out there. Now, this is if again, when I post this, you can go to this link, Chalkbeat, just click on this. What this is the states that are implementing laws that will restrict educators from teaching an unsanitized version of American history. So all the tan-colored states are doing that, and this is an interactive map. I can't do it interactive on this PowerPoint presentation, but if you go to the website and you click on the state, information will come up about what they are doing, the laws they have proposed, the laws they may have already passed. So now you can see Illinois is gray. When we go to the next, Illinois is gray, is green. These are states that are implementing laws to foster the true history. For example, Illinois just passed the Asian American history. Another group called FAIR, and Wendy, if you're on the call, can you unmute and talk about this?
Can you see me? My dog is all over me. I apologize. Yeah, so there I learned about, I live in Evanston, and they sent some AstroTurf people to the open house at Evanston High School, people who aren't even parents, to pass out their literature, which is a lot of nerve. And it's a group that Megyn Kelly, formerly of Fox News, formed. And they're very insidious in that they call themselves the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. But if you dig deep into their website and what they do, they're really trying, I mean, they're at one of, all anti-CRT stuff, and they're trying to scrub sort of equity, diversity measures from things. And they're not only in the education field. They're trying to tackle, you know, healthcare, and they're in all kinds of areas really trying to get rid of these measures. And they're supporting, this is just one of many things. I'm in Evanston. There's a lawsuit here from a white teacher against the district because they have this diversity and inclusion kind of framework and curriculum. And so she's suing the district, claiming that's racist. So that's their whole thing. They believe in a colorblind world and some nonsense of a pro-human stance, meaning we don't, we don't have to deal with anti-racism work because we're all equal, which we know is nonsense. So I think they only have 3 chapters right now, but one is just generally called Illinois. They took this off their website, but they did have under their career, section that they were paying organizers $250 an hour, which is insane, to go, organize parents and train people. And so luckily the parents in Evanston are very aware and organized, and they took pictures of these people. And we found quickly that some of them were from other, not from this area. And so they came back to another meeting this week and tried to disrupt. There was an anti-racism speaker named Calvin Terrell, and they have a lot of nerve. I mean, they come in from outside and try to basically, use this language, right? That's just the opposite of what they're doing. So I don't know where else they are right now, but I know they're trying to organize a lot here. And there are other parents who are connected with this group who were running for school board last time. So they do have some Evanston parents involved, but they're not the leaders. And again, this group FAIR has so much money from all, I know you've talked about this before on these calls, that and so they just, that's the scary part. They have tons of money to grow. And I just lost that. But I was going to say they have chapters all over the whole country right now. So I would just beware of FAIR. They bring their little postcards to meetings and hand them out to other parents.
So
is that enough?
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. And I think your comment about people who have run for school board and lost are very involved in this. That's the same thing that happened in Naperville with Awake, Illinois. That lady ran for the school board, lost, thankfully, but didn't want to accept the fact that she lost, and is promoting her views through this Awake, Illinois, which again is another well-funded organization. So this is something that I got from Marcy. And Marcy, I don't know if you're on the phone. Do you want to talk about this Rodney Davis slide?
Rodney Davis is our congressman, and in the Illinois 13th, and he has a history of telling us how bipartisan he is. For many years, he kept talking about he's one of the most bipartisan people in all of Congress, which is not really true. But anyway, so he has a weekly newsletter, and lately in the last few months, I think he's seen the writing on the wall as far as to redistricting was going to go, that he was going to be in a more conservative district. He has been tacking to the right farther and farther, and this was in his last newsletter. So that parents should stand up for and go to these school board meetings and stand up for their kids, because the school board is trying to do all sorts of terrible things. So that's what this is about. So is that what you wanted, Jim?
Yeah, and I think as you look at this, so the first two bullets here sound like a good thing that he's supporting local law enforcement to do this, but he's concerned if the FBI and the U.S. Attorney General intervene, it will have a chilling effect on public participation. Well, I can tell you, it won't stop. It won't have a chilling effect on people who are coming there to support the school board. It will have a chilling effect on the people that are coming there to disrupt the meetings. So, again, you got to read into this what he's really saying. More information. This is another group, Koch-backed group, fuels opposition to mask mandates. Leaked letter from this group called Independent Women's Forum. The author of the letter said she wants to speak up for what is best for her kids. She doesn't want to force the little kids to wear masks. Um, okay, but she says this is her heartfelt appeal is not the product of a grassroots groundswell. Rather, it is a template drafted and circulated this week within the conservative network built on the scaffolding of the Koch fortune and the largesse of other GOP mega donors. So this just happened just a couple of weeks ago. And so let's look at what the Independent Women's Forum is all about. On their homepage, this is right off their homepage. Do you worry about your country? Do you want to engage with fellow, here it is again, patriotic women who aren't triggered by honest debate? We are a home for independent, civically engaged, truth seekers, freedom fighters, game changers, policymakers who want a security platform for honest conversations about everything from politics to education. So again, it sounds good, but in truth, it's not. Now, here's another group, Americans for Prosperity. They have started a drive in Illinois called the Prairie State Promise. So Americans for Prosperity on their website has these bullets as what they're focusing on. All this sounds great. Let's stop tax hikes. Let's spend money. Don't spend money that we don't have. Prepare for our future health care crisis now. Make our communities safer. Educational empowerment for everyone. And corruption. Well, guess what? This is what they really stand for. This is just two of the things that I was able to find. Say no to a government takeover of prescription drugs. Stand up for Americans by opposing the infrastructure plan. Now, how could either of those be good for Americans? It's not. But so this is Americans for Prosperity. This is what they're saying. Policymakers should enact education reforms that empower families to have the freedom to access a range of educational services. What they're saying is we want these parents to be able to take their kids to private schools, and then we'll try to get you funding. So that's where this is all going. Again, vouchers, which are taxpayer money being diverted from public education to private schools. Prairie State Promise, very similar to what the Americans for Prosperity stand for, but this is what they want legislators to do. And again, educational empowerment for everyone. Again, that means private schools. One of the things that I found on the Prairie State Promise was, again, they talk about no more tax hikes. They say Illinoisans already pay enough with the highest combined tax and state and local tax in the nation. Well, that's not true. Actually, New Yorkers face the highest tax burden with an average of 14.1%. Illinois is actually 10th with 11.1%. So again, this is an outright lie because we don't have the highest tax burden. So here I put this chart in here. This is every state. I'm not going to say Illinois' tax burden is low, but at 11%, we are not the highest. And, people are moving to Wisconsin and Indiana. So let's take a look at Indiana. That's 2.3% less. Wisconsin is 0.4% less in taxes. So people are moving to Wisconsin because they say the tax burden is lower by 0.4%. That's hardly worth the move, in my opinion. But if you want to check all this out, the website is down here at the bottom. So when you get this presentation, you can check all this out yourself. So Joyce, would you go through all our action item opportunities for everybody?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. This is really just an amazing presentation and amazing information. So it's just awesome that he's put this together. Just a few other things I wanted to mention. Jim had brought up the South Lake Carroll School Board. There's a podcast, if you're interested, it's basically called South Lake, talking about the Carroll County School Board and how in 2018 they were really kind of at the forefront of this anti-CRT talk. There were some students with some racist incidents going on. The school board reacted by starting an equity program, and basically it blew up when the conservatives moved in and shut it down. It got very ugly, and you've probably heard they are back in the news now with this Texas law saying you have to show the opposite viewpoint if you have books in your school. A teacher had a book that said this book is anti-racist, and it's now blown up into you can't have books about the Holocaust unless you have the opposite view, and the teachers are just mortified and trying to figure out what that means. And again, this is just proxy for masks are just a proxy for keep the GOP keeping the base angry and fearful about losing their American way of life. On that interview that Lawrence O'Donnell had with the school board member, Alex Wagner of the Circus had some additional comments in a follow-up segment in that same show, which was just really outstanding. So we know what's happening, and we know that there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of attempts to take over the school board. So what do we do about it? So we're starting to comprise a list of things, action items that we want to do in order to fight back. They do have a lot of money. They're very organized, but again, progressives and just parents who care there's a lot of us. I believe, are still in the majority. It's just getting people aware. School board meetings, I tell people those should be the most boring meetings around, and they have gotten disturbingly angry and ugly. I've seen students speak up asking for mental health resources, and parents jeer at them, and it makes you want to cry. So some of the things that we want to do, first of all, we want to get involved. We want to be aware of what's going on at the school boards. Most school boards, they're recording, they're live streaming or they're also saving the videos. So minimally, we want to start having people search out their school board and see what's happening at the meetings. Even if you don't watch the entire meetings, because they are pretty long, but I generally, they're really well worth looking at the entire meetings, because you'll find out the amazing things going on in your school boards, as well as, tax and budget related information. But the public comments, look at those and see what's happening in the public comments. If you're looking at a live stream or a video, you're not going to get a sense of what's happening in the room, but at least you'll see who's speaking. Contact your school board by email. Make sure that they're hearing from people that are, want decency and, equity going on in their schools. They're easy to find out. Do a quick Google search on your district and the Board of Education and find out who's on the school board. And usually you can click on individual links or one link that'll just email all of them, and share that widely in your social circles, so that people, even if you, one thing that I think is always really helpful is to have a template of what you want people to say to the school board. And that, because if people have to think too much, it's harder for them to do it. We have something in our Indivisible NWSOFA group, which is awesome, called 1 Minute Activist. And it's just a quick action item, so you can incorporate this in your local progressive groups or just in your social media. Say, here's what I want you to say. Here's how to contact the school board. Tell them this. We love that you have a social equity program. Why don't we have a social equity program? Attend school board meetings. This is so important. We have to be there to find out what's going on. We need to be there to support our school board members, especially if they are doing great things. If they're not, we want to make sure that we're holding them accountable. And go on your own, but definitely to bring a couple friends, if it's just through a parent group, a school group, find local activist groups. We're fortunate where I am in Palatine to have amazing activist groups, and we can just just put it out there, hey, we need people at the board meetings, and they show up. Sometimes if we're trying to support students, we'll say, we'll all wear yellow just to, so even if you're not speaking, we see the support there. It's very visible. Sign up to speak to show support. So again, know what the policies are for public comments and how they'll fit into the agenda. In our area, the public comments tend to be first in the meetings. So, you can do your public comments and then you can leave. A lot of people don't even stay for the whole meeting. But you want to know how the sign up works. Sometimes you'll have to sign up in advance. Other times you'll have to be there before the meeting starts to fill out a form or say that you want to speak. And understand what the time limits are. They tend to be 3 to 5 minutes. Time yourself out, know how long, your speaking time will take. And I tend to believe that it is helpful to kind of focus on single issues. But if you have enough people, you can spread out those issues there. If you have too many topics in the 3 minutes, I think sometimes that can get lost. But however you want to get it out there, I think it's important. Again, look at view the meeting videos. So if you can't make it, you know what's happening there. And recognize the group showing up. So as Jim mentioned, we would love if people would start feeding back to him and I, what's going on in your local school board meetings. Look at the t-shirts they're wearing. Look if they're wearing signs. Get a sense of how many people are applauding. In most school boards, you're not allowed to react after people talk. People do it anyway. That's, so be that. They're applauding. Kind of get a sense of the balance. Get a sense if you think people are not in the district. And that's not necessarily, a bad thing, but if you're on a school board, one of the things you can start, pushing for is saying, only people who are in the district can speak if you're getting a lot of these people from outside. Try to get a sense if they're organized. So a lot of these people who, they'll wear t-shirts or you can tell they're saying the same words over and over, like Jim said. I was in Colorado on vacation in the summer. I picked up a local newspaper, exact same topics coming up, talking about the school boards, which is makes it very obvious that they're very coordinated and it's coming from elsewhere. After the meetings, note who's speaking at the meetings, and if it's somebody you think that's like-minded with you, try to connect with them so we can start creating our own grassroots connections. Share contact information, figure out who's on which issues. Join local progressive groups. School boards generally, at least in our area, are not partisan. But guess what? There's a lot of partisanship that goes on even at school board elections and behind the scenes. That's just something else that you have to accept and kind of look at ways to make that useful. Indivisible in our area, NWSOFA, local Democrats are progressive groups and are going to support progressive policies. There may be some rules about whether or not they can officially endorse candidates when it gets time for elections. But in the meantime, they can show up and organize, show up to the school board meetings as your constituents and taxpaying members or just members of the community. You don't even have to be parents. You're part of that community and you have a right to voice your opinion via letter to the editor or speaking. Join local Facebook pages. I know everybody hates Facebook pages because they do a lot of bad things, but they also help us to organize on both sides. So take advantage of that. Find the local progressive groups, parent groups. Honestly, some of those generic groups that are, for your specific town, honestly, I tend to avoid those because I find them so toxic. But if you can handle it, go in there and figure out what people are talking about. And join those local groups to help organize people to show up to meetings. If you can get people, or if you're a person who's a medical professional, mental health professional, a lawyer, a lot of times when those people speak at meetings, we had a pediatrician speak at one of our high school district meetings, talked about how masks are so dangerous to children. Total nonsense, but she's the one who the paper interviewed for a newspaper article. Letters to the editor, great, get those out there. We have an example. We have a local person in particular in our town who does amazing letters to the editor. He's calling out the right-wing groups for what they're doing to our school boards. We need to get out there and call them out for what they're doing. Create your own group to attend a school board meeting. Like I said, we're similar colors. If, we had a kind of a joke at one of our meetings, how would we recognize each other? Well, we're the ones with masks. A lot of these people don't wear masks to meetings. But again, figure out ways, even if it's a small group, just start showing up. It'll grow. I think another way that is good is online petitions to help highlight your issue. They're really easy to start. People don't necessarily even have to be, in the community, but I think it does help. I go to my local school board meetings, and you do hear a lot about, we have 1,000 people in our Facebook group, or I'm not just speaking for myself. I had a petition that said, 300 parent signs or 300 community member signs saying that they want our kids to be safe and wear masks. So consider using that, because again, that helps people understand that they're not alone in their community, or that there is other people who care about these issues. Find out about your school board curriculum policies. As Jim said, CRT is not taught in lower education. It's taught in higher education or in legal circles. It's not taught here, but find out if your school has an equity program. In my area, we do, and we have 2 conservative board members who refused to participate. Other board members, students participated. It's amazing. I like to, when I speak during public comments, I like to thank the board for having that. We need to protect those policies, because please note that when elections come out, our school board could switch completely in the next election. We have 4 seats out of 7 up for grabs. That equity program would be absolutely at risk. We were in the news for protecting transgender rights in the locker rooms which they identify. That kind of thing absolutely would be at risk. So understand that, know what the policies are and know what the issues are. Find out about your equity and wellness programs. The wellness programs, which kind of are combined with gyms now in high schools, those actually will cover things like sex ed and equity. In those, equity should be pervasive throughout your entire curriculum. But I think a lot of districts are just starting on those programs, and like what happened in South Lake in Texas, they can be turned around absolutely if you get enough people speaking out against that and saying like it's a bad thing. And a big one is run for office. And if you can't run for office, start looking for people who would consider running for office. This is so, so important. Like I said, people are quitting because of the hate and the vitriol that's being waged against them, which is part of the reason why it's so important to show up and send letters of support to your school board members who are there now. We need them there. We need them to stay because they have great expertise. And if they're willing to stay, we've had people on the school board for 20 years, but it's gotten super, super ugly. Find people who are progressive, who are willing to run, and figure out ways to support them if they are. Teachers unions, local progressive groups, Democratic groups, even if they're not allowed to officially endorse, their members may be willing to canvass or to, provide any kind of support to people running. A lot of people don't know what they're getting into. So we are looking, so in our area, we also, Democrats have some how to run for office programs. If you're interested, please drop that in the chat if you're looking to run for office. You don't have to have a lot of expertise. You can start getting up to speed on the information. Talk to individual board members. That's actually a great way to find out about some of the issues as well, and especially if you're interested in running. Find out what it takes to run. You don't have to have special expertise. You just have to care, and people will figure out how to support you. Let me see if there was anything else I wanted to mention here. And also, follow the national news, but also follow local news, like Patch, if you have a local newspaper. Keep track of what's important to people in that issue. If you're considering to run, make sure, get some support, and you'll learn about doing some oppo research. Look at people's Facebook pages, their LinkedIn, Twitter accounts, or Instagram accounts. You'll get a sense of who they are and what they stand for. And then finally, as Jim mentioned, we really want people to take notes. Go to your school board meetings and take notes on who is there, how crowded they are, what the topics are during the public comments, and let us know so that we can feed that back and really start coordinating our efforts as well. The other groups are well funded, but there's nothing like grassroots progressive activists to get stuff done.
Thanks, Joyce. Yeah, and I just want to comment too about what I've seen at attending school board meetings is the antis tend to get up and do their criticism during the public comment. And then as soon as they're done speaking, they walk out, they leave. Well, when they were talking about what we're going to do about COVID when school resumes, the school superintendent would go through their program, and he would explain to everybody how they were going to handle the COVID issue. But all the antis had left. So all they did was they just wanted to come there and criticize the board. They didn't want to find out what really was happening. So if you can, and these meetings can get long, but stay to the end of the meeting. When the meeting is over, go up and talk to the members of the school board. Introduce yourself. Let them know you're a real person and you're just there to help. So, but these things are critical. So this is our last slide. So for our November meeting, which will be November 20th, that's the third Saturday. If you attend your school board meeting, take some notes as Joyce was talking. Did you speak? Were the antis there? What did they say? Did they harass the board? Was there anything that you thought this group should know about? Because what we'd like to encourage is that at the next meeting that we have, 3, 4, 5 of the attendees talk about their experience at the school board and your suggestions on how we can move this movement forward. So one of the things that we're trying to do, there's a small group of us that have that meet on a separate day, and we're trying to build a coalition. So this is a work in process. We appreciate everybody attending today to go through this with us. But here's my email address. Here's Joyce's email address, and I'm going to post this in the chat so you guys can have this whole this whole presentation. Now, I will say so this is actually not the last slide of the presentation. I've included all the slides from the September 18th meeting in this presentation. So you will get everything from September 18th as well as today's meeting if you download this presentation.